5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We're in the pipe. 5 by 5.
This is the 5 on Film podcast.
Hello and welcome to this edition of 5 on Film, the podcast that should be sponsored by Disney Plus this week, as we are about to dive into oceans with the fishes, wake up on the bedroom floor like toys, and hide our secret identities like out-of-work supers. Yes, we are hitting the Pixar universe, all 25 films, to bring you our top 5. Joining me this week are our brave Chris.
Hey, Heidi, hey.
Our slick racer Ollie.
Hey. Oh, good chow. That's it, isn't it?
And we're rounding out our panel today with our cowgirl Amelia.
Who ordered the poo-poo platter?
and our super speedy Dan.
To infinity and beyond.
Thank you all for coming. Now, here's how it works. We're going to nominate a film each that we think should be in contention for our top 5. And if it gets 3 votes, it'll make our long list. We will then eliminate 2, and then we will rank the final 5 to give us our definitive top 5 Pixar films. If you'd like to join in on social media, you can find us at 5onfilmpodcast@gmail.com and on all the socials at 5onfilmpodcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, know that we can be found on your pod scraper of choice, be that Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you can also send us an audio message at Anchor FM/5onfilm. So Amelia, this is your choice. We'll let you go first, if that's okay.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So I'm going to start with a very controversial film because there are so many amazing ones. Obviously, Toy Story in some form is going to be on the list, but which one do you choose? Well, I am going to choose Toy Story 3 because that is the best Toy Story. Well, just, hear me out for you if you call me wrong. So, and also I want to say that, draw attention to my t-shirt. I've got my Pizza Planet t-shirt on tonight because I love Toy Story so much. And of course, the Pizza Planet truck has actually made an appearance in every single Pixar film, and it does actually appear in Toy Story 3, providing a bumpy ride to some traveling toys. And as well, if you enjoy Toy Story, there's obviously the mean kid Sid, and he reappears and then makes a little cameo as a grown-up. But Toy Story 3 is amazing. It's got so many fantastic characters, and of course you've got to mention Ken. We had Barbie. Ken, he has 21 outfits in this film. It's great. I love it, and it's the only film that probably makes me cry, and I'll watch it time and time again every time it makes me well up. So please,
Which
bit
makes you cry?
It's the bit, so my mum cries at the bit when the toys get left. I cry when they're, they think they're going to be melted. It's the end, literally every time. I never cry. It's just like they know that they're going to die and be melted, and they hold their little hands, and it's making me feel emotional now. Let's move on. Let's move on.
Amelia, I have a question. So this is the only film that you ever cry at. You don't cry at any other films ever.
No.
Okay.
No.
Just want to clarify that.
No, I don't. I probably only other one, again, another animated film called Dragonheart, which is a terrible film. I think it's something about animation maybe, and that says a lot about me as a person. But this is not a therapy session, so
Indeed.
Yeah. Let's
E.T.?
move swiftly on.
Right.
No.
No, it's Matt who killed E.T.
Cold woman.
Okay.
On that happy note.
Okay, so Toy Story 3, guys. Dan, you're our other guest today. How about you go first on this one?
I mean, it is probably my second favorite Toy Story film, behind one of the other ones, which I won't say yet. But at this early stage, and there are so many other films I think could go on the list, I'm going to have to say no. But that being said, it is definitely up there as one of the best Pixar films. It is a massive, like as Amelia said, is a real tearjerker. It's probably the maturest of the 4 Toy Story films. So I think in that sense, I might possibly have said yes. But and had it, if were we later on in the pod, we were whittling down to the last few, I might have said yes. But as we're straight off the bat, I think there are others that deserve to go on there. So I'm going to have to say no.
Oh, Dan. So it doesn't. It's not in your top 7.
I just, yeah, there are at least 7 other films I think deserve to be mentioned. So yeah,
Ooh, okay.
I mean,
But-
it's saying a lot. I mean, Pixar have got like so many good films. It was hard for me to whittle it down to 7, to be honest.
Well, like I say, there is 25 of them. So
Yeah.
okay then. Chris, go on. What do you think?
So Dan makes a good point that there are 4 Toy Story films, and Pixar arguably hasn't made a bad film yet. They're all of a certain level, some not as good as others, but Pixar are a hit-making machine, and so and Toy Story is amongst the cream of the crop, the series. So I think it's going to be difficult not to have more than one on the top 7 at least. So in saying that, Toy Story 3 is not my top Toy Story film, but it is still fantastic, and it is number 4 on my list. So absolutely, it's a yes from me. Just like Amelia, I cry twice when watching the film. Every time I watch it, I
Ben's performance, isn't it?
yeah. I think it's a fantastic film. The vocal performances are amazing. The story, as Dan said, it's much darker than the others, and it's really well rounded out. I think the trilogy it ends the trilogy very well. There's some argument for not making a 4th one, and that the way that the 3rd one finishes, it just is brilliant. It's got one of the best baddies in the series, arguably the best, and Ken is fantastic. And Michael Keaton as the voice of Ken. Yeah,
Is that Michael Keaton? How did
Yeah,
I
that's
not know
Michael
that?
Keaton.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's great, and yeah, can't say any more than that, really.
Okay, so 2 out of 3. Ollie.
When you think of Pixar, you think of Toy Story, don't you? And like Chris was saying, Pixar don't make a bad movie, really. I'd say probably 20 of the 25 Pixar movies are classics, like amazing movies that you can put on at any time and watch and enjoy it. Having said that, I agree with Dan. It's not my favorite of the Toy Story movies. I only put one Toy Story on my top 7, and it isn't Toy Story 3. It's fantastic though. I do genuinely love this movie and have watched it loads of times. The kids watch it. It is dark. It's got a very kind of early twist where you think they've gone. Woody's managed to convince the gang that they've gone to somewhere good where they're going to get played with. This is going to be a great experience for all of them. This is the second lease of life for all of them. And then they're stuck in the other room. They're pushed into the other room, and their worlds falls out from underneath them when they're in there with all the horrible little dribbly toddler kids that just smash them to bits. Which that's the heartbreaking bit, isn't it? I'm sorry, it's not in my top 7. There's only because there's so many good Pixar movies. It's not the Toy Story. I only picked one Toy Story, and it's not that one. So sorry, Amelia and Chris. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. And that kind of makes it me then, my choice. And I have to kind of agree that I've actually only got one Toy Story in my top 7, and it's not this one. Having said that, again, I'll echo what everybody else has said. It's a case of it's a great series. This is definitely the one they should have stopped with this one. I think this had a really good full stop on it, which turned out to be a comma. And it did get to me, but I think the thing for me is the fact that it is kind of like, if you were kind of watching them back to back, you kind of find that it is kind of the same plot a bit over and over and over again. New twists, but I'm not, and new characters, but it just kind of felt like they were treading water, so it was probably good that this was going to be the last one to go out on a high before it was that little bit too much. So unfortunately, I'm going to say no. Which means, sorry, Amelia.
You chose the wrong one. That's all I'm going to say.
But from the sounds of it, it doesn't sound like that's going to be Woody's last stand. So I think we're okay with that one. Right then. So one down. Next one, Dan. What have you got for us?
Right. I'm going to take a bit of a punt on this one. I'm going to go rogue and say. I mean, you've already said the amount of the amount of Pixar films that there are in existence, and this one might not fall under that banner. So it's probably, well, it's guaranteed to not make the list, but I feel like it's definitely worth a mention in the pod. And that's a film called The Brave Little Toaster. And I don't think without this film, we would even have a Pixar to talk about, because it was the film that got Lasseter fired from Disney, which he then went on to make, or to join the guys who developed Pixar. And it's a film about a little animated toaster and his kind of ragtag group of household appliances as they go off on an adventure to try and reunite with their master, who was a young boy who lived in this kind of in the house that they get abandoned in. And it's kind of the early signs of where Lasseter would kind of go with a lot of his films, which are all kind of animated, inanimate objects. I mean, in this one, you've got a toaster, a Hoover, a blanket, an air conditioning machine. And as a kid, it was probably one of the darker cartoons that I remember watching. But for some reason, it really grabbed me. And I think because you grew up watching, the core animated movies you end up watching are Disney movies, which are all kind of rose tinted and happy and lots of songs and musicals and stuff. And this just wasn't that. And I think as a kid, it really struck a chord with me. And to this day, I still kind of try and seek it out, and I haven't managed to find it on any streaming services or anything. And I don't want to go pay for it just at this point. But yeah, so I think it's an important film in the tale of Pixar, because we might not have had Pixar without it. So I thought it was worth mentioning on the pod.
Right. Okay. Right. I'm going to straight out say I haven't seen it. Is it a full length, or is it one of his shorts?
A feature length animation. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Did it come out at the cinema?
Yeah,
that I don't know.
It did.
I think so.
Right. Okay. Okay, guys. Ollie, what do you think?
I haven't seen it, I don't think. It rings a bell though, so maybe I've heard it referenced in like a Pixar documentary that I may have watched. I don't know. I haven't ever sat and watched it, so I can't say yes. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same here, unfortunately. Amelia?
I was just having a look on Disney Plus to see if I could find it, and I've not had much luck so far. But do you know what? I'm going to say yes, not because I've seen it, but because there's so many amazing Pixar shorts or less commercial films that they do as well, and they're just as amazing and brilliant. So I'm going to say yes, even though I haven't seen it.
Okay, Chris?
I think I mean, I can't say yes because it's not a Pixar. Sorry, Dan. I have seen it.
Fair enough.
I do remember it. It was one that was on quite a lot when I was younger. I don't really. Oh no, I do. There was quite a traumatic scene where a load of other evil kitchen appliances tried to kill the toaster.
Yeah, because these are all like the vintage appliances, and then they kind of stumble across some modern.
That's right. Yes, because they're all from the 50s, and then it's a modern day like blenders and stuff trying to chop them up, and it's I didn't know that about the origins of Pixar. There we go.
Yeah, but I think from what I've read, he was pitching it as his kind of wanting to showcase using computer CGI within animation. But at that point, he was focused on using it to create backgrounds with kind of traditionally animated characters in the foreground, and basically just got thrown out of the pitch. Well, not thrown out of the pitch. Was told he was fired after the pitch because it wasn't going to save Disney any money by doing it that way. It wasn't until he met the guys from LucasArts, I think it was, who then they went on to develop Pixar, and they then introduced the idea of creating CGI characters, which he didn't think was doable. He was just focused on the kind of creating depth.
Steve Jobs had a hand in early days Pixar as well.
Yeah,
it was Lucas, wasn't it?
Yeah, basically, Lucas, George Lucas, set up a computer arm, and John Lasseter became part of it. And Jobs, I think Steve Jobs spotted its potential, and then turned around to George Lucas and said, "You know what, mate? This might be worth a look." And I think that's where we get things like the first. Please correct me. The first full CGI animated character being the stained glass knight in Young Sherlock Holmes.
Correct.
Which was ILM, and I think that basically that was kind of like the first Pixar thing, and then obviously when Disney picked them up, it was the Belle and Beast's Ballroom.
Yeah, so I didn't realize. Rewatching that more recently, you can see it's CGI. I don't think I really picked up on it as a kid.
Yeah, and then Aladdin's Cave of Wonders melting and the Cave of Wonders entrance. Yeah. So that's where he went. Apparently, he went to an animation conference before he started, and I think he took the initial programming for Luxo Junior. And all the engineers were so stunned because he'd made a lamp, given a lamp a personality. And they kept asking him how he did it. He said, well, it's just ones and zeros. They said, no, how did you make it do that? So, yes. Anyway, shall we quickly touch on the shorts? Because the shorts are very, we've brought them up. The shorts are usually where Pixar practices its new software before its next film. So I mean,
yeah, and the fact saying this to Matt, who obviously isn't on the pod today, but was discussing this, like I can't remember which film it was before, but I remember vividly the one on the beach with the little birds and the little grains of sand in the water, and how realistic the water was and how realistic the little grains of sand were.
Yeah. Oh, is that Piper?
That's Piper, yes.
And then that technology was then implemented kind of into the next feature length that came out.
I think it might have been Luca.
Well, yeah, that would make sense.
It's
a hell of a lot of water, isn't there?
Yeah, but just I kind of like for the birds. Yeah. The one with the birds with the feathers on the telegraph wire. Yeah, I think that was before Monsters Inc.
That would make sense.
For natural textures and things. So yeah.
Yeah, and the Pearl was actually the first short of Pixar's Spark Shorts program. So now employees at Pixar, they're given 6 months and a smaller budget to produce short animated films. And I really love Pearl because of the story of the little ball of yarn that goes to work at Bros, and there's she's the odd one out and she has to work out. I think a lot of us have felt like that at work, being the odd one out. So I love that, and she's the only female not to have eyelashes, and it was also a female director as well who led the one. So I definitely was going to mention Pearl at some point in the pod, so I'm pleased to have.
Have you seen the dumpling one? The one with the dumpling?
Yes.
Wow.
Which is
directed, isn't it?
Which is directed by the same director who's done Turning Red.
Is it?
Yes.
Wow.
That was kind of her audition piece, so to speak.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
because of all the there's a lot of food in Turning Red, isn't there?
And all the cultural beats on it. So yeah, excellent. And obviously I like Jack Jack Attack because that's just wicked. Okay then, so we've had two, and unfortunately we've had two no's. Ollie, give us our next one.
Right, let's get one on the list. I'm going to go with a film that I absolutely love, and it's that classic trope that you sometimes get in a Disney. I know this Disney Pixar, but in that movie where something sad happens really early doors in the film. And this one actually makes me cry. And I'd forgotten this when I sat down and watched it with my eldest daughter, who's called Ellie. So the film is Up. And it starts off with a little boy, Carl, and he's very shy and he's a bit nerdy, and he's listening on his old radio to the Adventurers program. And he dreams of being an adventurer. And then this girl, who's a bit wild and she's a bit feral, completely different to Carl. She turns up, and her name's Ellie, and they strike up this brilliant friendship. She's super brave, he's super nervous, and she kind of brings him out of his shell, and they have a fantastic time together, and they grow up and they get married, and they start trying to save to go on their adventure, and there's always something that kind of gets in the way, like the house breaks, and then the money that they've been saving for their adventure, they have to spend on that. And within about 5 minutes of the movie, spoiler alert, switch off now if you haven't seen Up, Ellie dies. And I'd completely forgotten that happened so early on in this movie. When I sat there and was watching it with my daughter Ellie, I was like, oh no, she's called Ellie, isn't this brilliant? And then Ellie dies. But so that's a very sad moment. But then from then on, you see an older Carl, and he's grumpy, and he's still in his little house. And then like the big kind of corporations kind of come in and try and buy his house off him so that they can build these skyscrapers. So you've got Carl's little house in amongst all these kind of huge buildings, and he desperately doesn't want to sell it because that's his memory of where he lived with his beloved Ellie. So it's got a real kind of heart to this movie, even though you've got kind of grumpy Carl, and then this Boy Scout turns up, and they strike up this incredible friendship and go on the adventure together. The Boy Scout wasn't supposed to come, but ends up tagging along for the ride, and it's the most wonderful, lovely movie. I could watch it once a week if I had the time. I absolutely love Up. My whole family loves Up, and I think this definitely should be on the list.
Okay, so Chris, does this float your balloon?
Sadly not, no. Up kind of passed me by a bit, really. I didn't see it in the cinema, and I don't know what it is about it, because it is a good film, and it's very touching, and like Ollie says, it's quite emotional at the beginning, but I think that once the house is in the air, I don't know, there just doesn't seem to be that much of a story, and it doesn't go anywhere for me. And it's just a bit too basic a plot. And I think that it's also not as funny as a lot of the other Pixar films for me. And one of the trademark, the hallmarks of Pixar for me is a film that's got a lot of humor in it, and Up's not one of those films for me. So it's a no. Sorry, Ollie.
Right then. Amelia, Up.
I'm going to say yes. And did you know that, if you may have counted already, but the final balloon count on Up was 10,297 balloons lifted the house. So there's
Wow.
the fun fact of the day. And also I have to say yes purely for Doug, because if you're a dog owner like me, you know how accurate that dog is, and you know that's exactly what your dog would say.
The dogs are
if
funny,
they
Chris.
had
The dogs are really funny. There's your humour.
and also you will need to watch Doug Days, which is the shorts, which I may have consumed quite a few, and particularly his thoughts about squirrels is very matches my own dog, so it's a yes from me.
Right, okay then. Dan, go on then. Oh,
Yeah, 100% is on the list for me. That said, I do agree with Chris a bit in that I having rewatched it recently, I had forgotten how much it dipped in the middle. I mean, I don't know how you could forget the opening, Ollie, because that's traumatic. That's probably part of the reason why I haven't gone back.
I think
to
I'd
it.
forgotten that her name was Ellie until the film started, and then I was like, all excited because my daughter's Ellie and the girl's called Ellie, and then it didn't dawn, the traumatic bit didn't dawn on me until it was about to happen, and I was like, oh God, what have I done?
But yeah, no, it is a brilliant film, and I agree with Amelia as well. You've got to watch Doug Days, because I watched that recently and hadn't seen that before, and it's very funny.
right.
But they're just little short kind of capers as what Doug gets up to.
Right. Okay. And for my two penneth, it's to the lower end of my 7, but I'm going to say yes, because it does get right, apart from the dip in the middle, and you can actually say this with a few Pixar films. Actually, they kind of start so strong and then kind of dip in the middle and then finish off with, in this case, with an aerial battle between a house and a zeppelin. And it's because it's a house and a zeppelin, and it's the sort of thing that the fantastical thing that kind of needs to be seen to be believed. I like the fact that Alpha gets the wrong voice box, and also the fact that the guy in the middle of the jungle is basically Kirk Douglas. So that's really cool. I think this was probably one of the first purest emotional ones, but I kind of agree that it doesn't have the most amount of plot, but it kind of carries on its emotional content.
It's kind of like the John Lewis Christmas ad of Pixar movies. Like they've tried to kind of
Perfect analogy,
have those like emotional moments ever since then, and like the audience response to that opening, it's like they try and recreate those emotional moments in every film since, and I don't think they've ever quite bested.
Well, as someone keeps pointing out, that 10 minutes is the best movie they've probably ever made. So anyway, so yeah, that means that Up is the first one to hit our list. Then Chris, what have you got for us?
Okay, so I'm going to hold off on my Toy Story nomination, and I'm going to go for my number 2 pick, and that is Wally. I love this film. I went to see it in the cinema. It's fantastic, beautifully animated, hardly any dialogue, which is really clever, I think. And the plot evolves around a little sort of trash compactor machine called Wally, and he's on Earth, and it's the future. There are no humans there. It's kind of post-apocalyptic, and it's just this rubbish everywhere. And Wally is one of these hundreds of thousands of robots that the humans had built to get rid of all their rubbish. And he is the last one left. He's on his own, and he turns out he is sentient. He has a personality, and he's very lonely. And then he discovers a plant on Earth, where all plant life had appeared to have died because of the pollution. And then this giant futuristic spaceship arrives, and a very futuristic robot appears called Eva, and Wally falls in love. And he chases Eva around, follows her around, because she has been sent to find this scan for the planet for plant life, and she finds it, and then they go into space to give it back to the humans who are now living in space. It's I'll wind up the plot there. There's a lot more to it. There's some amazing touches. Sigourney Weaver is the voice of the ship, the robot. And all of the humans are really lazy, and they've all grown obese, and none of them walk anywhere.
That's not even the future, though, is it? That's just
well, quite. And it's a great story about where we are, message about where we are as species, and an environmental tale. And Wally is just adorable. He when he powers down, he makes the windows noise, and he watches he collects things that he finds. He has a cockroach as a best friend, and he loves musicals, and he replicates the musical that he finds. I just think it's
starting to see a lot of parallels here.
Yeah,
cockroach as a best friend, musicals.
Don't know what you're saying, Dan.
That's why I want to know who the cockroach is. That's my pick.
Okay, so we have Wally as our next one. I'll go first on this one, and I'm going to say yes, because the one thing you can kind of count on a Pixar film is idiosyncrasies, and this is the most idiosyncratic movie, definitely of its time. It's about a robot left alone on a planet, going out doing its job, watching Hello Dolly movies on its time off, and living its best life on a dump of a world, and then basically people coming back and wondering if the Earth's still viable. It's a love story, and all the sounds are done by Ben Burt from Star Wars fame. So all R2-D2s and all the robot noises and chip noises are all from the same stable as Star Wars. Wally has a ragtag bunch of mates when he finally gets to the ship. I like it. It's quirky. No one else would have made this film, and I think that kind of makes it almost a quintessential Pixar movie, in the fact that no one would have made it, and yet it is still probably one of the best movies that have been made at least at that time. So yeah, I'm going to say yes for this one. Amelia, what do you think?
thing is, whenever I think of Wally, I think of the Wally lights. So when we used to work together, and there was the little Wally lights that came down from upstairs for the shows, and they looked like little mini.
Yes.
Maybe I was the only one who did that. Show.
No, I used them the other day, and
but then
they tore a hole in my trousers, which I dug out of the wardrobe for the first time in months because I thought I'd wear something nice, and tore a hole in them on the Wally lights. So for
Was
that
it the
reason, I say
lights,
no.
or was it when you were bending down, Dan? So let's be honest. Come on.
I feel like that's a whole other story, maybe after the podcast. But despite I love those lights and I think they're awesome, I'm going to say no just purely because I think they're a better Pixar film. So I'm sorry, my answer's a no this time.
Wow.
Wally's not in your top 7.
I don't know.
No.
25
Holy
films.
moly.
Have we got too much choice here? Dan, what do you
Maybe we
think?
have.
Wally has definitely got to be on the list. I mean, purely on a technical standpoint, when you kind of having watched kind of older Pixar films, kind of back to back with newer ones, kind of out of chronological release order, I think I maybe watched Incredibles and then watched this, and it's just like it's like striking how much detail there is in the world that they create. Like all the little trinkets and stuff that Wally collects, and the textures, and it's on the kind of rusted metallic body of him compared to the like Apple iPod-esque, which is ironic actually considering Steve Jobs' involvement of Eva, and then from the like moralistic kind of standpoint, the kind of picture it paints of where humanity is headed, and thinking back to when it was released, it must have been about 2008 or 9 or something, because I would have been at uni at that point, and I don't think I got my first iPhone until like 2010. I was a bit late to the party, but I don't know that they were released, and if they were, it would have been the first 1 or 2, and yet you've got humans on this spaceship kind of just sat talking to each other while they're sat next to each other, but talking to each other through screens. Like it's almost like prophetic of where we are now, with everyone just glued to their screens. Yet at the point when it was released, that definitely wasn't a reality.
So at work, if you go down to a certain floor in the Zoom meetings, like people are sat next to each other having a Zoom meeting with the person. So you're exactly right. It's that the foreshadowing is up there with Black Mirror, isn't it?
It's crazy. And the irony as well that obviously Apple, Steve Jobs' involvement in Pixar, and they're kind of telling of the dangers of this kind of modernization, and yet there they are, kind of leading the way with it.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's definitely got to be on the list. I think it's incredible.
Okay, Ollie, here we go.
You mentioned. I'm pleased you mentioned Ben Burt, John. He did the voice of Wally as well. So he briefly left Lucasfilm and went to work for Pixar for a long time. Not for a very long time. Sorry, but yeah, he's the voice of Wally. I was lucky enough I went to a Star Wars convention in Germany quite a few years ago now. I ended up at the same table having lunch with Ben Burt, and as a Star Wars fan, it was literally the best day ever. Doug Chang, who's one of the designers, he was also there. But Ben Burt is the most fantastic person to, as a movie fan, to ever have a conversation with. We spoke about Wally. We spoke about. He tells this brilliant story when he was working on the film Lincoln, and he desperately wanted to get into the White House to record the clocks in the White House, so that when there's the ticking in Lincoln, it's actually the noises of the clocks that have been in the White House for God knows how many hundreds of years. He's that nerdy about it.
Amazing.
Right.
And like Kathleen Kennedy, who produced that movie, she was like, "Oh, Ben, you and your clocks." But it took him ages to get clearance to get into the White House. And it was only because it just so happened that one of the people working there was a big Star Wars fan and knew that he'd made the sounds for R2-D2, the TIE fighters, the lightsabers, and that's kind of how he got in. So yeah, Ben Burt, voice of Wally. Is it in my top 7? Nearly, not quite. Would I do love the movie, but there's so many good Pixar movies. it's definitely in my top 10. It nearly made it, so I'll say yes anyway. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that means that Wally has made it onto our top 5. Short list so far, Up and Wally. So here we go. Let's see if I can get the next one. I feel that this is probably the best all-round Pixar movie. And
this is your number 1, John.
this is what I think is my number 1.
Some big claims there.
It is big claims, and considering it's had a sequel, I'm still going for the original one.
That could still be 2 films.
Yeah. There's no cowboys in it. There is a villain called Bon Voyage. And it's about underground superheroes. It is The Incredibles. And yeah, I actually think that this is a brilliant adventure film. I think this is dealing with superhero property damage before Marvel got a look in, with the Sokovian Accords,
or DC.
Yeah, it's in before DC, and it actually has the plot to Watchmen before Watchmen became a film. The Watchmen comic came out in the 80s, but this has actually got the plot of superheroes being criminalized and then having to go underground and hide their secret identities. Unfortunately, Bob Parr, Mr. Incredible, has a slight problem in that every so often he breaks his identity and ends up having to be relocated. At which point, in this case, a mysterious organization approaches Mr. Incredible and goes, "Hi, we'd like to fly you out to this island, and we'd like you as a consultant on a project." So he decides to get himself into shape. He's feeling a bit middle-aged, with his wife, Elastigirl, who's just mom at the minute, and his 3 kids, Violet, who can turn invisible and project force fields, Dash, who's super fast, and then Jack, who's just a baby. So he kind of disappears on these. He loses his job because he puts his boss through a wall, because he's working in insurance and he's helping an old lady to actually get around the red tape. And he ends up taking this job in secret, putting his old super suit on, and taking this job. At which point, it turns out he's being chased through tropical forests by robots, and it all gets a bit much. He goes missing. His wife starts tracking him down. Due to a babysitting issue, the kids end up on the tracking him down as well. And it is pure 1960s James Bond hokum. The styling is all 1960s monorails, hooded monorails, and all the cars are boxy cars, and then you have sports cars. And I just think that this is a rip roaring adventure with a nice little twist, in that they're not, and it turns out that the robots are being designed by someone who's trying to kill all the supers, but he's using the supers to test his equipment to make sure he can kill all the supers. And I just think it's a lovely film. We don't see what Jack does in this film. You have to watch the short to see what Jack's all about. But you've got Jason Lee as Syndrome. You've got the kids realizing how they can help out and use their superpowers when they've been told all their lives they're not allowed to. And Holly Hunter is very good as Elastigirl. So I think that the Incredibles is actually should be on our list. So let's start with Chris. Go on.
Yes, I agree. I think The Incredibles is an incredible film. My son really likes it, and we watch it a lot. It's Brad Bird did an amazing job with the film. He does the voice of Edna Mood, and his idea was to thinking about a family of superheroes and taking the concept of the roles within the family. So the dad being the strong one, mum constantly just having to get hands everywhere and making sure that everyone is all right, and a million different things at once. So stretching, a teenager who doesn't want to be seen, so she's invisible, and then a young kid who's just constantly running around full of energy. It's brilliant, genius. And like you say, it's set in the 1960s with the Incredicar, which is amazing, and Samuel L. Jackson as what's his character? Frozone, that's it. It's brilliant. And so Mr. Incredible, suffering midlife crisis, ironically working in insurance, and longing to be a superhero again because they had to go into hiding, and sitting in his car with Frozone, listening to the police radio. It's ace. Great film, and definitely it's on my list, so yes.
Excellent. So 2 for The Incredibles. Amelia.
Well, I'm going to say yes, because it is a great film, but also it is the first Pixar film to entirely focus on human beings, just because human beings are the hardest thing to animate. Also the first PG Pixar film as well. And in fact, it has a Die Hard reference in there as well. So how can you say no to a piece of film like that? So my answer is yes.
What's the Die Hard reference?
So it's from Die Hard with a Vengeance, and there's a shot which is because Samuel L. Jackson is a shop owner in Die Hard, and it's basically shot for shot matching. So next time you watch it, take a look.
Has somebody done a YouTube video side by side? I need to see that.
There is. I'll send you the link later.
Well, we'll find the link for when we put this out.
There you go.
I didn't know that.
It'll be moving across right now, and it will look like I'm being extremely clever, and I've pre-given you the clip, which I have not.
I'll shove it in the top corner or something. I'll do something with it.
Nice one, John.
Excellent. Dan, The Incredibles.
Yeah. Short answer is yeah. I'll stick it on the list, although it's not in my top 5 personally. You guys have done a great job of upselling it. I watched it recently, and it was a really, really hard to kind of pick which ones would go into the top 5 slot. And it, as the title suggests, it is incredible. And I quite like the kind of, seems to be a few films that kind of have this kind of like old kind of Americana kind of 1950s 60s kind of feel to them, and I really like that about this one. It's kind of like old school yet modern, and I'd forgotten that Jason Lee was in it as well, so that was a real kind of pleasant surprise rewatching it recently, and hearing him voice the baddie, so that was a nice little touch. So yeah, I think it's worthy of at least the top 7.
Excellent. And Ollie, last one. What do you think?
It's not actually in my top 7, so I'd have probably said no. It's a great movie. Is it in my top 10? Maybe. But yeah, I just said no.
Right. Okay. Well, I also think that this is actually the first time they had a director come from outside of Pixar to actually make a movie for them. I think Brad Bird was actually just a jobbing director with a good idea, who either, I think Pixar approached him or he approached Pixar. So, but this is the first one that wasn't part of the brain trust of Last Doctor and Unrick and the rest. So, yeah. So yes, so that means The Incredibles is our number 3 on the list. Right, okay, so that's all of us round. So Amelia, back to your second nomination. What have you got for us?
So my second nomination is Monsters Inc. because I watched this repeatedly as a child, and it's something that's very close to my heart. And obviously, we're all scared as kids of monsters under our bed, but to actually see the monsters and all the different things that they do was terrifying, but also quite fun. So interestingly as well, that Pixar actually came up with the idea for Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, Wally and Bugs Life over a lunch meeting, which is obviously where all the best ideas come from. So that's another reason why it must have been a great lunch.
That's a long lunch as well.
One lunch meeting.
Yeah.
And all of those ideas.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think they had some good cake or some good dessert that day. That's all I'm saying.
Don't know whether it's a good thing
that.
or not, whether it says that, their idea, all of their good ideas, they happened once and then they just never came up with, or it took them ages to come up with something again, or...
I'd say that was probably the Disney effect of having to do sequels.
Either had another meeting where they decided they make sequels to all of those, or majority of them. And also as well, it was very cutting edge at the time. So you look at Sully and just hadn't seen anything like that before. And he had 2.3 million strands of hair. And obviously when you look at the later Monsters University and all the other sequel bits and pieces, he obviously looks even more impressive. But at the time, he's just a lovely, cuddly monster. And obviously Mike Wazowski, who loves being on the billboard, except he's gets sort of cut out. He's like, I'm on the billboard, and you can't really see his face. So there's lots of different reasons, and it's quite scary as well in places because it sort of looks at our childhood fears. But ultimately, it is an amazing film, and just go show laughter is the best medicine, not being scared. So that's why Monsters Inc. should be included in the top 5.
Excellent. Yeah. Dan.
Yeah, this is in my top 5 for sure. It's a great buddy film, Little and Large, and again, as I said about Incredibles, the kind of old school American style, kind of 1950s 60s esque kind of touch on it. I really like that, especially like I don't know whether maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that kind of like peak Pixar era, like they really went to town on their like title credit sequences and stuff, and the whole kind of branding around that, and with like all the kind of doors and stuff in this one is really cool, I think. And having recently had a little girl myself, it's kind of a newfound appreciation for Boo. So yeah, I think it's definitely got to go on the list.
Excellent. Okay, Ollie.
Yeah, definitely. Monsters Inc. is probably the funniest Pixar movie. I'd say, yeah, it's the funniest Pixar movie. Billy Crystal and John Goodman, a brilliant double act as Mike and Sully. Looks fantastic. Sully's hair, as you mentioned, Amelia, was groundbreaking, wasn't it? The technology to make him look so fuzzy and furry. Yeah, some of the funniest bits in any Pixar movie. The slug kind of monster lady that kind of runs the desk. She's hilarious. I love her. And Boo is just the cutest, sweetest thing that they kind of want to look after and take care of. Yeah, it's fantastic. Definitely deserves to be on the list.
Right, excellent. And Chris.
Monsters Inc. is just outside my top 7. It is a great film, but it just didn't make it. So it would have been is a no for me. But doesn't matter, does it? It's already in.
Well, it has kind of made the list. I think I think you get two comedy legends playing with a very inventive story, and I think that it's I can't really say much more than that. I think it's cute, it's sweet. It goes on a bit of a sojourn towards the end, but then brings it back perfectly with the ride through the doors. And Monsters Inc. should definitely be on our list.
Oh,
Speaking of the
that's
doors,
good.
and that whole sequence, it's quite lucky that they always managed to get the right door. It could have a real disaster if they went through the wrong one and ended up getting locked
Yeah.
out somewhere in the middle of nowhere. But
That is
Like
true.
Abominable.
always comes back around.
Abominable Snowman. That's what happened to him.
I was also just going to ask, what does everyone think happened to Boo? Because like the end of the film is that she opens the door, and I always thought there was going to be a sequel. And as far as I'm aware, they've never answered, because I assume that she was sort of like all grown up, and by the time he put together the door, or do you think that will always be left as it is because it's a perfect?
Hopefully left.
I think they'll leave that alone. I think that's I think that's one of those nice bits that they'll just kind of leave hanging.
Well, it depends if they run out of ideas, doesn't it? If they run out of ideas, they'll have the Monsters Inc. 2, because obviously Monsters University was a prequel where where Mike met Sully. I just, in this world of streaming, there's just so much content, isn't there? There's such a thirst for content that
they did do the series.
Ideas that wouldn't have been made a while ago would be made now. So
there was this
I'd be
series
surprised if we didn't see
which
more.
tells what happened after, but it's not from. I don't think it includes Michael Sully. I think it's just about the company.
Okay.
So I don't think it continues that story, but it is set post Monsters Inc.
Yeah. Right then. So next up, Dan, what have you got for us?
Right. So there's only a couple of my top 5 left to mention. Now I could go. I suppose they're both quite obvious ones, actually. It hasn't been mentioned fully yet, and it's kind of been left for someone else to mention. So I'll grab it. Toy Story, the original Pixar movie, the one that started it all, probably for all of us, I think, and possibly still for me peak Pixar. Just because, as John, you said, Incredibles was the quintessential Pixar film. I think Toy Story is. I love how huge it feels, yet at the same time it's so self-contained. It's just 2 neighboring houses for pretty much the majority of the film. It's on this tiny scale of what would happen if the toys in your childhood bedroom came to life when you were asleep or when you left the room. And it's that thing, it plays on that kind of pure imagination as a kid of like, wow, what if these toys that I love playing with were alive? And as a kid, hadn't seen anything like that, because they did genuinely look and feel like real toys when you're watching it on the screen. We hadn't seen animation like that before. And I vividly remember it was actually a pirate copy that I saw it on. My dad came back with 2. I think it was my dad came back with 2 copies, one for me and one for my best friend, or maybe it was his dad. And I remember sitting and watching it in his living room and just being like awestruck at this idea that the toys would come to life. And I like all the little nods to kind of real recognizable toys that we kind of knew, as like Fisher Price stuff and the little toy soldiers and things. There were things
Etch-a-Sketch,
were made up for the film, but then these kind of little nods to kind of real world brands just made it feel real. Also, I remember there was a skate brand called Zero. So when I was a teenager, they had this skull logo on the chest of this T-shirt, and I thought that was where they got Sid's skull thing from, without being. And so as a teenager, I was like, wow, they even included a real skate brand. But actually, I think it was the other way around. I think the skate brand took the skull from Sid's shirt and branded their whole skate brand around Sid, which is kind of cool, a cool flip on it. But yeah, I think it's an incredible film. I think it's the best Toy Story. It's the original Toy Story, and for that reason, I think it should go on the list.
Excellent. So that's Toy Story. Let's go with Ollie. What do you think?
It's a brilliant movie. I, as a child, just assumed that this was what was happening in my bedroom when I wasn't in it. I genuinely believed, probably up until the age of 8, that toys had a life of their own. I had a very vivid imagination as a child. So when a movie came out that kind of reaffirmed what I thought was happening, I absolutely loved it. I'm just going to stick up for Sid. I don't think Sid is a bad kid. I don't know why he's kind of painted as the villain of this piece. He doesn't know that those toys have a soul and a life and a real. He's just playing with his toys. That baby head, that would have been thrown in the trash. He gave the baby a new lease of life by giving that legs. He was fixing toys. So Sid, he's not a bad kid.
It's from the lens of the toys, isn't it? So if you see this kind of Frankenstein creating these kind of monsters.
But those toys weren't bad toys. They helped, didn't they? They were nice toys. So obviously, they'd still been played with by Sid. Sid's not a bad guy. I don't know why he's the villain. I used to do things. I used to modify my toys when I was little.
Maybe that's
yeah, but it wasn't just Sid's toys though, was it? His poor sister Hannah got all her toys nicked, and then he would butcher them, and then give them. Here you go. Here's your doll with a fish head.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Okay. It's not my favorite Toy Story movie. I'm sorry to say. It's a brilliant movie. It's fantastic. It kickstarted the whole thing, and without this, we wouldn't have Pixar. We wouldn't have the amazing Toy Story movies that we've got, all 3 of them, and the 4th one. But I'm going to have to say no, just because it wasn't in my top 7 or 8. So sorry, Dan.
Yeah.
Chris, what do you think? What about Toy Story?
Can I defer to Amelia first, please?
Yeah, go on then, Amelia.
Well, is that because you have to have a lot of thinking time about your decision?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
This is a tricky one.
Okay, no worries. So I'm gonna say yes. I mean, admittedly, this is not as good as Toy Story 3. We've already worked that one out. So a couple of things that may potentially blow your mind. So apparently, Tom Hanks is not the only voice of Woody, because apparently when he's too busy, his brother Jim voices Woody. So there are lots of other sort of on computer games, things like that, where he's too busy to do it himself. He gets his brother to do it, which is, I don't know how true that is, but apparently that's what he said on the Graham. Yeah, he said it on the Graham Norton show.
Yes.
So true. And the story that I really hope is true, but again, I don't know because I've just read it on the internet, is that the animators actually turned themselves into toy soldiers for the day. So they wanted to know how the soldiers would move so that they could animate them. So basically, one of the animators nailed their own sneakers to a wooden board and then walked around in a soldier style for the day to give them inspiration. I really hope that is true.
I feel like I've heard that, or may have even seen images from that day, photos or videos or something.
Yeah, again, hopefully there'll be pictures, like I actually planned this going across the screen right now, of said story. So it is a yes, because it started everything off, even if it's the wrong one, but can't have everything in life.
Okay, Chris.
It's not helped. Okay, so this is number 7 on my list, and yes, the Toy Story is fantastic. I love this film. It's not my favorite Toy Story film. There isn't a better one. There is so much to love about this, but I think it, oh geez, I'm worried. No, I'll. There is a better Toy Story film out there, but as it is number 7 on my list, I can't say no to the Toy Story nomination. So I will say yes, in the hope that the other Toy Story makes it.
Imagine the top 5 of all 4 Toy Stories and one
yeah.
other.
I did wonder whether that would happen. So
I'm not
we
sure
might...
4 was going to make it though.
True.
Says the guy with the Forky figurine in the background.
That's Toy Story 3 though, isn't it?
No, that's
No.
4.
Is it 4? Oh, I need to watch it
Hang
again.
on, did you nominate the wrong film, Amelia?
No, I definitely nominated the right one. Don't you worry.
Yeah, get
Don't
them
worry.
right, Amelia.
Well, I mean, if there's saying that there's other ones that are better, Chris, I mean, that kind of narrows it down to which one you're going to choose if it's not 4. We've already had 1 and 3, but.
Indeed.
Right, okay. So were you having the same trouble I was having between Toy Story and Toy Story 2?
Yes, although Toy Story is 7 on my list, and the other one is way higher. So I did say yes because it is 7 on my list.
Okay. Right. Okay. So then that's me, and it didn't quite crack didn't quite crack my 7. So that
It does make it though, because
that being said, it's got 3 votes, so it's actually made the list. Now
I clearly missed something here because I thought Toy Story was going to be the one for everyone, and Toy Story 2's never really grabbed me in the same way. But
hang on, let's talk about that in a minute.
yeah, I'm not.
But no, it's made the list. Like I say, for the conversation, I actually personally I think that Toy Story 2 is possibly the better film. But no, Toy Story has made our list. So Ollie, we've got 5. What's your next one? What's your second?
I love this movie. I came late to this movie. I don't know whether everyone else loves it as much as me and my family do, but I'm going to give it a nomination anyway. I'm going to take you to Gay Paris and say hello to Ratatouille. Remy, the rat, who is very different from the rest of his family. He has a passion and a skill for cooking. The rest of his family, including his brother and his father, they eat garbage. They're more than happy with garbage. Remy wants something different. Remy wants something that's going to tantalize his taste buds and excite him. And he goes off on this journey to Paris to kind of try and fulfill his dream, his destiny of becoming a chef. And he makes an unlikely partnership with a young man, and he is able to work with this guy to create the most amazing dishes. I think it's a fantastic movie. Part of my love for this is that we went as a family to Disneyland Paris, and we had a meal in the Ratatouille themed restaurant where everything is overscaled. So you're basically the size of a rat, and there's like the giant kind of champagne corks that you kind of sit on. And so as soon as you kind of go into the into the restaurant. Everything is oversized, and there's huge kind of cocktail umbrellas. It's absolutely fantastic. It's an expensive but amazing experience. And then the Ratatouille ride at Disneyland Paris as well. You're rat sized, and you're kind of sat in a little car, and you're going through the kitchen, and there's all the smells and the kind of the smoke and everything. It's a fantastic experience. But you wouldn't want to go on that ride, and if you hadn't seen and kind of loved the movie, there's a real kind of heart to it, and it's about somebody who's different from their family and dreams of more. So we in my house absolutely love Ratatouille, and I think he should be on the list. Remy says hello. Put me on the
Hello,
list.
Remy. Okay then, Chris.
I'm relieved to hear that the themed restaurant didn't focus on the rats cooking the food, and that it was the other way. It was the other way around. I rewatched this the other day, actually, in preparation for the pod, and I was late to the film as well, the first time round when it came out, and on my rewatch, there was something. It just didn't capture the Pixar magic for me. It was really well animated, and it's a solid film. I don't know whether it's the concept that I couldn't get my head around. I don't know.
Rats
yeah.
cooking. It's mad, yeah.
It's a good film. It doesn't make my top 7 though. Sorry, Ollie.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So, I'm next, and I'm going to say that I like it, but it's not a film that's kind of stuck with me. It's not one that kind of reminds me of Pixar. It's not one that creeps up on me and jumps in, or all that MasterChef that I watch. It just doesn't. So it hasn't actually made my top 7. It's a lovely film, and it's a great concept, and I like the fact that I think Remy actually gives a history of rats and people at one point, and then gives you an entire lesson on gastronomy of how you mix flavors together. But unfortunately, it's not one of the ones that kind of jumps out at me. Now, again, I think I kind of skipped it on initial release, but I kind of caught up with it, and no, it doesn't really do it for me. So, Amelia, what do you think of Ratatouille?
Well, I actually went to Disneyland Paris while that ride was being built. So sadly, I never got to go on it. And I think maybe that's why I'm going to say no.
Oh.
Exactly. I need to go back. Right. But I am very impressed that more than 270 pieces of food were created digitally for the film, and every item was prepared in real life, photographed, and then eaten. So as a foodie, I appreciate that, but sadly, it's not enough to make me say yes. Sorry, Ollie. I can't look at
the sad rat.
I can't look.
Oh no, the guilty rat. Dan, what do you think, mate?
Yeah, see, I watched this for the first time the other night, and it might have been because I was really tired, but it just didn't grab me, and so for that reason, I've got to say no as well.
Boom.
All right, I'm sorry, Ollie. That's a no on Ratatouille. You dirty rat. Chris, here we go. What you got for us?
Here we go.
All right. So my number 1 pick on this list, and in my top 3 films of all time, Toy Story 2. I adore this film. I love the first film, and this just, although it was going to be a straight to DVD, straight to video release from Pixar, because they didn't think that people would, people didn't think that would go to the cinema to see it. Thank God they were wrong. This is Pixar at its absolute best. It's got an amazing story that focuses on Woody, and it kind of questions his existence. Andy's growing up and he's scared about being lost or not played with anymore. And there's a realization from a discovery that Woody's actually a very rare toy, and that he's from a famous cartoon from the 1950s, a puppet show from the 1950s. And he has a gang. It's all these other toys that were made with him, and Jesse and Bullseye and Prospector Pete, Mint and Box. And it's just adorable. There's a fantastic Star Wars parallel with Buzz and Zurg, who turns out to be his dad. And we are treated at the beginning of the film to a fantastic sequence which pays a ton of references to all these sci-fi films. And it's a level in a Buzz Lightyear game that Rex is playing on the SNES. I seem to remember it as a SNES controller. And I just
with his tiny arms.
Yeah. I love this. I love this film. Yeah, I could watch this all day, every day. I think it's the funniest Toy Story. It's it just with the bit in the toy aisle where they go into the toy shop and they mock themselves by Barbie's giving them a tour, and short-sighted retail suppliers couldn't keep up with demand for Buzz Lightyear, which was absolutely true. They couldn't. It's just there's a Jurassic Park moment there as well, with Rex chasing the car because he fell out. They improved on the graphics so much from the first one, and the scene at the end, the chase with the airplane. I mean, everything that they did in Toy Story, it was just, the scale was just ramped up. Yeah, it's great. Love it. It's best Pixar for me.
Excellent. So Toy Story 2. Let's go to Amelia. What do you think of Toy Story 2?
To be honest, it was a real difficulty for me to choose between Toy Story 3 and Toy Story 2, and I definitely agree with everything that Chris said. It was absolutely fantastic. And of course, there's the story that you see a lot on social media about how Toy Story 2 nearly got deleted, but luckily somebody who was on maternity leave had a copy of it and everything was saved, because it would have taken them a whole year. And apparently that story is actually true. You're seeing it a lot on social media at the moment, and that is a true story. I absolutely love it, and I think I was about 11 when I came out with, and they had the little McDonald's Happy Meal with the Toy Story 2 toys, and it was just a point in my life where I was just really, really happy, despite other things going on and being on crutches and in a wheelchair. So it was like my little happy space. So I definitely say yes to Toy Story 2 as well.
Dan, what do you think, mate?
Right? Yeah. So
yes.
I mean, my answer already. I prefer Toy Story to Toy Story 2. And I was hoping that Chris's explanation might kind of enlighten me as to maybe something I've missed and why I prefer what I'd missed with Toy Story 2, and why everyone seems to prefer that over Toy Story 1.
I didn't manage though.
I don't know. See, this is it. I like the self-contained, the really small, kind of almost like realistic, as realistic as you can get for toys that come alive. It's kind of story of one where it's just this, it's basically kind of kept really small, and with the two houses, neighboring houses, and I think it just starts to get far-fetched when you start kind of going out into the wider world, and it's this thing that it's the kind of sequel syndrome that happens, isn't it, where they think they've got to go bigger and more explosive and throw more at it. And just I was, as much as all of those things that you said were cool, like all the references and the Jurassic Park stuff, and I definitely would have laughed at it at the cinema when I saw it. It gets very meta at that point, and I quite like and I know there are references in the original as well, but I just like the kind of like small time story, the little self-contained bubble that it's in the first one. And for that reason, I'm going to say no to Toy Story 2, because I think there's maybe one or two others that could make it into the top 7.
Ollie.
Toy Story 2, yes, that's my favourite Toy Story movie. It's number 2 on my all-time Pixar list. I love all the references that Chris mentioned, the Star Wars ones, the Jurassic Park ones. I love the whole row of Buzz Lightyears in his box in the toy shop. At one stage in my life, before I had children and a mortgage, I was a big collector of Star Wars toys. So the toy shop owner, Al, I even though he's the villain of the piece, I felt an affinity with him because he wanted to complete his collection. I've felt that excitement that he feels when he saw the Woody in the garage sale. So again, he's misunderstood, but it's an absolutely brilliant movie. It did go bigger, and it did get better. It is one of those sequels that's better than the original. Absolutely, 100% deserves to be on the list. It's the best Toy Story of the 4, certainly.
Okay, and I'm going to say yes, because I've already actually said yes prior when we were discussing Toy Story 2. I just think that it's a little more involved. I think it goes that one step further. I think the whole it just seems to build on the idea, so it does get bigger and better. So Toy Story 2 makes our list, and that's our number 6. So who is next? That'd be me. Right, okay.
There's only one movie you can mention now. There's only one other movie that deserves to be on that spot. There's only one. Yeah, there's nothing else.
Right, okay. So back around to me and my last, my nomination, which I hope will make the list, is Finding Nemo. It's about a dad who is overprotective of his child and has to go on a quest to try and get his boy back. This is it's really touching. I think Albert Brooks plays the Jewish dad very well. Basically after a huge disaster befalls his family, he has to take care of his only son, who's got a defect to his fin, and he's overprotective. He doesn't want to let him go for all those many different reasons. And then his son gets scooped up and taken away, and ends up in an aquarium in a dentist's office. Weirdly, again, this is another idiosyncratic film. I mean, it looks absolutely gorgeous. The aquarium scenes alone, and the ocean scenes alone are amazing. And again, because they're fish, they're just the right side of shiny to actually look real. They're better than cartoon, but not as good as but not fleshy. So the humans are still very comic book, but the fish are very, very much great. I love the sharks. Fish are friends, not food. hello. Um, Even to the fact that one of them's Eric Bana and the main one is Barry Humphries, Dame Edna Everage himself. I love the seagulls. Go mine. It's definitely, yeah. I think this is kind of like an all-round classic, and it introduces us to Dory, who's also another carefree character who life just does not get her down. So I think Finding Nemo should be on this list. So Amelia, Finding Nemo, what do you think?
Do you know what? I'm going to be controversial. I'm going to say no, just because it's not. I'm sorry, John. It's nothing. It's honestly nothing personal. Uh, but I'm just going to say one of my favorite facts about it is that dogs were used as models for the fishy facial expressions. And apparently, particularly looking at the eyes of the fish characters, they're all based on dogs. But sadly, I just think there's better Pixar films out there. I'm sorry.
Might be the most controversial thing ever said on 5 on Film.
My goodness, what on earth is happening? Okay, Dan, Finding Nemo.
Yeah, it's definitely got to go on the list. I very recently took my little daughter to the aquarium for the first time, and while she's still a bit too young to kind of notice the reference, even though actually Finding Nemo was the first Pixar film I showed her as well, because I just couldn't bring myself to show her Toy Story yet, because I wanted her to be of the right age to really appreciate it. She's kind of got this kind of affinity for fishes and stuff, so I thought to take her to the aquarium, and all the kids still, like little kids, are still going, oh, there's a Nemo. So it's kind of, it's transcended the generations, because it's quite an old film now, which you kind of forget quite how long ago it was released, and for kids to still be kind of referencing it, I think is pretty incredible, and says a lot. That said, when I showed my daughter it for the first time, it was off the back of I was still watching kind of maybe like too adult stuff in front of her, like Sopranos and gangster movies and things, because she was a kind of tiny little bundle of just a little nugget basically. And then it was that point where she'd started to kind of notice and recognize stuff.
She speaks with an Italian American accent now, doesn't she?
And I had Last Action Hero on, and the title sequence kicked in, and it's like big explosions and smashing through the walls and stuff. Scared the crap out of her. She burst out crying. I was like, oh, what have I done? Like, broken my child. Let me put something to calm her down on. So I stuck on Nemo, thinking, it's harmless. There's fishes. It's going to just, the water will just hypnotize her. And then within the first 5 minutes, there's the barracuda eating the entire family, and which again, I thought maybe she might be too young to kind of really realize what was going on. But again, scared the crap out of her. She burst out crying again. I was like, oh God, I've traumatized my kid. So that had to quickly come off. But yeah, Finding Nemo, it's an incredible movie, and probably, aside from Toy Story, the second biggest kind of huge success story of Pixar, I think. So yeah, it's definitely got to go on the list. Right.
Okay. Ollie.
Again, it's another one of those movies, children's movies, that starts with an absolute massacre. So super sad at the start of the film. It's a film where its titular character is disabled, but Nemo's got a lucky thing. He's a main character who's actually disabled. I think that's really important, and it's not made a big thing of, other than he just says he's got a lucky thing. I absolutely love this movie. It's absolutely beautiful. All this, the whole thing is absolutely gorgeous. It's my favorite Pixar movie. The whole family loves it. 100% on the list.
Okay, and Chris, it has made the list. What would you say about Finding Nemo?
It's on my list. It's lower down, but it is a really good film. I particularly like the turtles, like being surfer dudes, and I like the fact that they, they're made out to be very fast, which is really good. Because you kind of don't think about them in that way. But obviously they would be in the water. And then the fish tank escape. I like the kind of ragtag crew of species in the tank that this Australian dentist has collected.
Led by Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe, yeah. And I can't remember the other actors' names, but they're like the starfish and the the black, yeah, the Willem Dafoe is the black fish, isn't it?
He's the zebra
Stripey
fish,
one, yeah.
That's yeah. Yeah, it's a really good film and spawned a slightly lesser sequel. So yeah, it's a yes for me.
So that's a shark bait. Hoo-ha. Right, okay. By my reckoning, that's 7. Do we just want to double check that because it broke up last time? I've got Up, Wally, The Incredibles, Monsters Inc., Toy Story 2, and Finding Nemo.
Yep.
Now, due to the amount of films that we've got on our lists, I'm going to say that let's have some special mentions, and if we all line up, then maybe we can find our 8th Black Hawk Down out of that. So, Amelia, are there any special mentions?
I haven't rewatched it, so I don't know how well it's aged, but I want to say Bug's Life because I was obsessed with it. And if you did not shout "Who ordered the poo-poo platter" when you were a kid and find it hilarious, I don't know what to say. So I'd add Bug's Life for me.
Okay, Dan, any special mentions?
My special mention has to be Inside Out. I think it was a really really clever take on the human mind. I thought it touched on some really important topics about depression and sadness and that kind of thing. And I just think it was quite a unique film, and something that was a bit different from the usual Pixar fare. So I think that's it. In that sense, it's worth going on the list.
Okay, Ollie, do you have any special mentions?
Mine would have been Finding Dory. I think it was a brilliant sequel. Again, absolutely fantastic. All of the new characters that they asked, and going to like the SeaWorld-esque place was a great place to take the story. Yeah, Finding Dory, I think is almost as good as Finding Nemo, and that's towards the bottom of my list, but that would have been my special mention.
Okay, and Chris, any special mentions?
Brave, obviously.
Inside Out for me. I really love Inside Out. I think it's a really clever way of teaching children about emotions and feelings. And I was very late to Inside Out. I'd heard a lot about it, a lot of buzz, and I didn't watch it until last year, maybe for the first time. And I think it's fantastic. I watch it quite a lot with my son, and we both really enjoy it. I think it's beautifully shot. It's very poignant. It's very sad as well. It's really funny. Kind of showing when the parents, when you see their emotions inside their head, and they're all talking to each other. That's hilarious. So yeah, that would be my special pick.
On that note as well, I've seen a few memes that kind of point out that I suppose while the main the title character is the daughter in the family, and it's kind of from her mind's perspective of the different emotions in her head. But when they go to the parents, it's almost like a Star Trek. The bridge kind of situation with all the 5 key emotions kind of controlling the mind, and the captain in the dad's brain is anger, and the captain in the mum's brain is sadness.
Yes.
And whether that's kind of a deeper reference as to what guides genders and that kind of thing. And also they then go to a teenage boy's brain, and it's just a skate park running amok. So yeah, I just think it's an interesting kind of little nod that maybe is missed on first watch.
Yeah. So I mean, I would Inside Out. I think it again. I echo what you've said about that. I watched Coco last night, and I actually think that's a really good film culturally. I think it's a good way to kind of explain. It's not actually about death. It's almost about remembering people as opposed to death itself. Although it does actually turn that way in the end, and I think it's done in a very nice way. I'm
got a great soundtrack as well.
Yeah, I'm going to mention Cars 3 because I think
what?
Cars 2 was terrible.
Just cars in general.
Well,
it's a horrific concept.
Well, I actually like planes, which Disney took on as a concept in the same universe.
Ooh.
But it kind of gave me a bit of joy. But like I say, your mileage will definitely vary on that one. And just quickly, what's your general opinion on Turning Red? Seeing as that's the latest one that's come out.
I thought it was really, really good. Saw it maybe, if not the night it came out, then the day after, I think. When I realised that they weren't charging extra for you to see it, I was like, well, I'm going to stick that on straight away in case it's a glitch. But yeah, no, I thought it was brilliant. Again, from a technical point of view, like it's visually stunning. All the textures, the animation style. And then also the themes that it touches on with growing up and puberty and that kind of thing. I think they're really important messages, and it's great to have that in what is a family film essentially. And it's quite sad to see that it's being deemed as controversial, because I don't understand why human nature is deemed as controversial, really.
Yeah, Chris.
Human biology, even.
Yep. Sorry, Chris. What you've seen it, haven't you? What did you think?
I really like the animation, and I like that it's kind of addressing that sort of teenage part of life, and from the perspective of a teenage girl. I think that's really good, important. And there's also a lot of cultural representation in it, which is really good, and also kind of emphasized by the style of animation. There's a sort of manga kind of influence to it, and Japanese anime. Story-wise, I really didn't like the mum. I found her really annoying, kind of on the same level as in the mum Entangled. And I mean, I know I appreciate that it's kind of done for effect and to move the story along, but her actions in the first 2 acts are horrific. So from a kind of an enjoyment perspective, that kind of tainted it for me. I just got angry and felt really bad for the daughter based on the mum's actions and from where she was coming from. Right. Because there's a point where she talks about regret and she kind of had the same issues with her own mum, so the protagonist's grandma, and yet she couldn't see that she was just doing the same thing to her daughter. So sorry, it got quite heavy there, but for that I had a big issue with that. But
is there not an element of that that's just projecting realism? You know, it potentially might be autobiographical from the writer's perspective, but also I suppose, is there not an element of all parents that are a bit hypocritical in that way, that they, you know, do as I say, not as I do kind of vibe?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I just thought it was far too extreme. I didn't think it was subtle enough. Like the whole like driving her to the supermarket to confront the boy behind the counter. That
Right.
Oh yeah, it was horrific, but
those things got to be a caricature, haven't they? They've got to be bigger than perhaps would happen in real life, because it's got to be a story. It's got to have those elements.
I mean, Amelia, we haven't got a 13-year-old girl here.
What are you trying to say, John? I act like a 13-year-old girl.
No, I'm saying you're old.
Careful, John.
You're old enough to be you're old enough to be able to tell us what a 13-year-old girl is like. But what was your take on it?
I have to say that don't listen to the people on Twitter who go, oh, it's about periods. It's not about periods, just about that. Anyway, to be honest, I found it really refreshing that they were looking at something from a different viewpoint, particularly because you can sometimes, I think there are more viewpoints from certain areas of society that are shown more on in films, let's say that. So I found it really refreshing. I was quite surprised that the film was actually made, particularly when you think about it was commissioned a few years ago, and now it's obviously more acceptable on it, and different viewpoints are getting into mainstream media more, and it is definitely about lots of amazing things, and it is about growing up and being a teenage girl. And as somebody who his nickname is also Mimi, and also I've just had to start wearing glasses, I identified with the character a lot. And there was a little Tamagotchi, and there was all these sorts of things that I really sort of could identify with the character. And also I'm really interested because there's a documentary that's out, and it's talking about the mainly female based production team, so I'm super looking forward to seeing that. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I identified with the main character.
That's on Disney Plus as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I literally watched it this afternoon, so it's fresh in my memory.
Ollie.
We had a movie night with the kids and my wife, and the girls absolutely enjoyed it. They loved it. I enjoyed the bits that I saw. I have to admit, I did fall asleep halfway through. I'd done an early shift, either that day or the day before, so I was pretty tired. So I've seen like the first kind of third, and I've seen like the last 10 minutes and little bits of it in between. I'm mostly surprised that anybody would find any of the content of that controversial. Why should it be controversial that it references in the most subtle way a teenage girl having a period? That's absolutely ridiculous. Anybody that's got a problem with that and chooses to voice it on Twitter, oh my God, just go and crawl back under your rock and stay there. That's ridiculous.
I mean, have they not seen Teen Wolf?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I mean, I have to say, it kind of struck me that it's a case of it's kind of like a family secret that's been kept from him. Okay, granted, it's a boy. It's a family secret that's been kept from him until he becomes a teenager, and then suddenly becomes a werewolf, and then uses the werewolf to his advantage. So it's not exactly.
I mean, this is very different because it affects half the people that live on this planet, and it's so subtle within the movie. There's nothing controversial about it.
No.
The fact that it doesn't mind referencing it is good, but there's absolutely nothing controversial about it.
No, absolutely.
What I always find shocking is you often find there's like a swathe of middle-aged women in the comment section saying that it's controversial and sexualized, and it's like, surely as a woman you grew up like almost probably in a generation where this kind of topic was kind of kept hush hush, and it probably did have a negative effect on you because the amount of stories that I hear from female friends that have to almost hide parts of their human nature because of societal stigma, and this is kind of trying to break through that. Surely they would not want that for their children, and rather than kind of perpetuating the cycle.
Just talk to your kids. We've got 3 girls aged 6, 8 and 10, and we just talk to them about things like this. They ask us questions and we answer them, and that is absolutely the best way to be. There's nothing controversial about this whatsoever.
Absolutely. Our 10-year-old is on the way to that to these sort of conversations, and this part of her life. So yeah, we didn't see anything wrong at all, and I think it's just people being overzealous, shall we say, and not being realistic. Okay, then I think Inside Out had 3 votes in that. Was it 3 votes or 4 votes in that? So
3.
Do we want to include that? Will that?
I'm
do
down
we think
for
it's
it.
going to make it?
I think it would need to be a clean sweep. So
Right.
Ollie and Amelia would have to green light it.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Inside Out as well. I prefer other films, but yeah, I'm happy to add it in.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll
put it on, because I probably prefer that to at least
else.
one of the films that's already on there. So why not give it a fair chance?
Okay, then. So here we go with the elimination. We have 8 films up for grabs today. Up, Wally, Incredibles, Monsters Inc., Toy Story, Toy Story 2, Finding Nemo, and Inside Out. Now, at this stage, we are going to lose 3. So let's go. So let's start with Amelia. Which one would you lose first?
I would probably say Wally.
Okay. Dan?
Toy Story 2.
Toy Story 2. Okay. Ollie?
I'd say The Incredibles.
The Incredibles. Chris?
Monsters Inc.
Monsters Inc. Okay, so we have no. Okay, and I would probably say Up. So we have absolutely no consensus there whatsoever.
Oh, sorry, hang on. So 10. Oh no, I can't do that now, can I? Never mind.
What?
Should we all? Let's everybody go around and say the next one, and then
we'll see what happens. So okay, so Amelia, what would be your second off the list?
Finding Nemo.
Okay. Dan?
Incredibles.
Okay, so that's 2 for Incredibles. Ollie?
Probably Inside Out at that point.
I would probably say Wally. So that would be
John?
Sorry?
No, Chris, you don't get to go this round.
Chris.
Up.
Okay. So we have Up, Wally, and The Incredibles on 2 votes.
Is that Amelia? The odd one out there?
Well, we've all voted once for each of those 3.
Oh, okay.
So in that case, does that make those our first three off the list? Do they make those? Does that make those are eliminated?
What are the rules here? Do we need to phone Paul?
Yeah. um.
So that's
Well,
each of those
okay.
has got two. So there's 6 votes.
Well,
isn't there,
okay.
between them. So who
who didn't vote?
So we've
who
got
hasn't voted for any of those?
me and Chris voted for Up. Me and Amelia voted for Wally, and Ollie and Dan have voted for The Incredibles.
And I was Monsters Inc. for my other one.
Yeah, okay. So I've voted twice. Chris, Wally, or The Incredibles?
Oh no. They're my 2 and 3.
Aren't those were those your nominations?
No.
Oh, John, as in you were the one that
So
put them forward.
I've got to pick between the two of them.
I know,
Yeah.
but didn't you put Wally forwards, didn't you? But did you also put?
I put
John
The Incredibles.
Okay, sorry, I'll stop interfering.
It's all right. So basically, we have 3 which are leading to be taken out. Okay, Chris, you haven't voted twice for any of those for these 3, so you've already voted for Up.
Yeah.
So it's the other
Wally or Incredibles.
Wally or The Incredibles.
Well, that is a poo-poo platter.
Because Dan, you've also got to choose between Up or Wally.
Oh my god,
Incredibles.
this is an ET moment all over again.
So Chris for The Incredibles. And Ollie, you've got to choose between Up and Wally.
Wally.
So Ollie. And okay, so Dan, Up or Wally?
I legit thought that these 2 would be like up there, like unanimously. This is heartbreaking.
Wally's my number 2.
I think all right. Well, it's actually not that hard a decision because even though I love both films, Wally blew me away on a recent rewatch, and I just found loads more I loved about it. Whereas Up, I realised actually the story does dwindle a bit in the middle, and I think it's the kind of emotional wham you get at the start of the film that kind of like holds it up in kind of pop culture. So I think I'm gonna have to vote for Up.
Right, okay. And Amelia, Up or Monsters Inc? Up or Incredibles?
I think I would vote Incredibles out.
Right, Incredibles is our first off the list.
Jesus Christ.
That is our number 8. Okay, so
That is messed up.
we have 3 votes for Up and 3 votes for Wally. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset it.
I think that's
Good
a good
choice.
idea.
I'm going to reset for this next one because that was so hard, and we'll start again. So, Amelia, which is your next to go? Wally, Amelia. Okay, so
I really need to rewatch.
Dan.
Thanks, John.
Sorry, what?
You said Amelia, Wally. I thought, a bit harsh.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, what wasn't personal yet. Sorry. Dan, what would your next vote be?
Toy Story 2.
Toy Story 2. Okay, and Ollie.
Inside Out.
Ollie and Chris.
Inside Out.
Right, Inside Out. Okay, so Inside Out's got 2, so that's going to be number 7.
What would you have said, John?
Up. So
Stop saying Up.
I'm sorry, it's just how I feel. Okay, so got my vote. We've got
So into the top 5 now.
no.
6.
This is number 6.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
6.
So I voted for Up. Amelia's voted for Wally. Dan's voted for Toy Story 2. So Ollie,
Actually, it's Toy Story for me next.
okay, and Chris.
Up.
With 2 votes, that makes Up our number 6. Right, okay. So into our top 5.
Bloody hell.
Amelia's voted Wally. Ollie's on Toy Story 2.
No. I'm on
Toy
Toy Story.
Ollie, sorry, Dan is on Toy Story 2. So Chris. Monsters Inc., Toy Story 2, Finding Nemo, or Wally?
Monsters Inc.
Monsters Inc. for Chris. And my vote goes to, it's going to go to Wally. So Wally has 2 votes. That becomes our number 5. So that leaves us Monsters Inc., Toy Story 2, and Finding Nemo. Chris, you've said Monsters Inc. Ollie, you've said Toy Story 2 for Dan, and Finding Nemo. Amelia, which one?
I'd say Finding Nemo.
Finding Nemo. And I'm going to go with Toy Story. So that's our number 4. So we have Monsters Inc. With 1 vote for Chris, Toy Story 2 with Dan for 1 vote, and Finding Nemo with Amelia for 1 vote. What's our number 3, Ollie?
Monsters Inc.
Monsters Inc. And I'm going to go with Monsters Inc. as well. So that'll be number 3, which leaves us with 2 films left, Toy Story 2 and Finding Nemo. Ladies and gentlemen, what is your first place story? So I've got Dan and I've got Amelia. Ollie, your first place.
There he is. Found him.
So that's Nemo. So that's for number 1. Sorry, and Chris, Toy Story 2 or Finding Nemo?
To infinity and beyond.
Which makes me the deciding vote.
Rigged again.
Yeah, it always is. I've been taking lessons from Paul. I am going to go with, as much as I like the look of it, as much as I think it's no, I can't do it. I'm gonna say that my number 1 film is my number 1, and therefore the poll's number 1 film is
He's frozen again.
2.
Say it again, John.
It's Toy Story 2.
Yay!
So
I'm fine with that.
Clearly need to rewatch that film.
there we go. So our top 5 are number 5, Wall-E, number 4, Toy Story, number 3, Monsters Inc., number 2, Finding Nemo, and number 1, Toy Story 2.
Play the fanfare.
Just another special mention that we were just running a bit long, so I'll just mention it now. Luca, it reminds me so much of Studio Ghibli that it's such a lovely non sequitur film. It just doesn't really mean anything. There are no real high stakes to it at all, and it looks gorgeous, and it just reminds me a lot.
There are high stakes. If they find out that those are actually sea creatures, sea monsters, whatever, they're going to kill them.
Yeah, but
that's pretty high stakes.
But it just kind of the whole thing just feels like in My Neighbor Totoro. It just feels so gentle, and everything is approached with such ease and nicety, apart from the fact that they're going to get stabbed and used as fish bait. But I actually really like that one.
Yeah, I really enjoyed
It's
it.
beautiful. Have you seen the Instagram account Walking Through Film?
No, I haven't.
So there's this guy, and he gets frames from films, and he prints them out as a photograph, and he'll go to that location, and he'll hold it up, and he'll photograph it perfectly in the place.
Yes.
So he's done this with Bond films, Harry Potter films, all kinds. And the fishing town, the Italian fishing town that the movie is based on, is a real place.
Right.
So he went there. So quite often, movie companies will pay him to go to different places to help promote their film, and they'll send him with a load of stills, and he'll hold them up, and he'll take the picture, and he'll perfectly line it up. And it's absolutely fantastic. And it kind of shows you all these different locations of all these movies that we love all over the world. It's at Walking Through Film, I think it's called.
Right.
On Instagram. So check that out, because he goes to the actual fishing village, which I didn't realise was real.
Well,
but even the colours of the buildings.
This is actually a point, because I watched Aquaman after watching Luca, and I swear the Italian town. It's
not the same. No, I'm not having that.
It looks very similar. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same location, but used in completely different ways. So, so anyway, thank you very much, guys. Amelia, have you anything to add?
I would recommend reading an amazing book called Women versus Hollywood, and it's a real eye-opener and slightly depressing for me, because apparently women on average, once they've done their first feature, take on average 10 years to make another one, compared to men that are only 2 or 3 years. But there's also lots of other amazing facts in there and things. So I'd really recommend, if you get a chance to read it.
Yeah, that's really by that's Helen O'Hara, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes,
very, very good.
So if you listen to the Empire podcast, you'll hear a lot, and she rolls out a lot of those facts in the 3 fact structures. It's really interesting. I think that's a book that's worth me getting, and I don't buy many books, so
definitely should do it.
Dan,
I've actually got nothing to plug or promote on this one, I'm afraid.
No, that's fine, mate. Hope you've enjoyed yourself. Hope you're keeping well. I hope you keep well.
Cheers.
Ollie.
I'm really pleased that my top 2 favourites made are the top 2 of the list, just in the other way around. Just quickly, as this is a family-friendly podcast, my wife has started a new business, kind of selling children's and baby stuff, bumbleandtwig.co.uk. So if anybody on here has got small children, anybody listening, and wants to buy toys or decorations for the bedroom, or lots of different kind of baby products, and all kinds of, they're all really lovely high-end things that we've kind of bought for our kids, or been gifted them for Christmas and things over the years. So the idea behind the company was to sell the things that we know are really good and that we love and have used, and just collect them all together and have one place to kind of sell them. So that's what we've been doing. So bumbleandtwig.co.uk is my wife's new business, which I'm really proud of her for. And yeah, I just thought I'd give that a little plug. So thank you.
Excellent. And Chris, anything going on?
No.
Fair enough. But thanks for joining us, and thanks for listening, everybody, and thanks for watching. If you want to get in touch, join us on all the socials at 5 on Film Podcast, or 5 on Film Podcast at gmail.com. You can connect with us through all of those. And also, if you go to our Anchor website at anchor.fm/5onfilm, you can actually leave us an audio message that we can incorporate into our next program. Hope you enjoyed it all today.
Nobody's done that yet, have they?
Nobody's
left
done
a
that yet.
message.
But then again, I think we're only about 2nd or 3rd release at time of recording. So please feel free to get in touch with us. So please get involved. Please send us some ideas. Please tell us we're right. Please tell us we're wrong. But please tell us. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. And good night.
Golly, Bob, howdy.
All views expressed in this podcast are that of the individual and do not represent the views of any entity whatsoever which they have been or will be affiliated with in the future.